cost to fly by private jet continues to increase. It went up 6% in the second quarter. That was after a 5% increase in Q1 compared to the end of 2020 when we had the Fly FET free, the CARES Act, private jet flying, the cost to fly privately on a per hour basis for jet cards that have fixed or capped rates and guarantee availability. The hourly rates are now up 28% since the end of December 2020. But there is some good news. I think there could be some relief in sight, maybe. We're going to talk about what's happening and what could be ahead. So thank you for joining us. I'm Doug Gollan. I'm founder and editor-in-chief of Private Jet Card Comparisons. We're a buyer's guide to private aviation services. And thank you for joining us today on the Private Jet Card Comparisons YouTube channel. Please take a moment if you can and subscribe to the channel. So private flying, the cost to fly privately continues to increase. As I talk to subscribers of Private Jet Card Comparison, not seeing demand decrease. What subscribers continue to tell me is that many times, especially if they live in spoke cities, the airlines just aren't an option. The schedules aren't there. The dependability isn't there. And so they're sucking it up and they're paying the higher rates to fly privately. And as I mentioned, demand is remaining pretty steady. So it seems like people will pay more to fly about the same. But let's talk about what's happening in the world of private jet pricing for the charter market and specifically jet cards. And that's jet cards that have fixed hourly or capped hourly rates, so you know what the price is going to be when you buy into the program, and then also guarantee availability. So as long as you book those flights a specific number of hours or days before the departure date, you know what you're going to pay, as opposed to dynamic pricing. And I have a good video about the different types of pricing. Dynamic pricing is where the trip is priced based on when you call and when you're going, and the price for the same trip from New York to Palm Beach could be different if you call today versus calling next week, and whether you're going on a Friday or a Wednesday. So the fixed hourly rates, you know the price that you're going to get when you join the program. Okay, so let's talk about the overall market. This is from the Private Jet Card Comparisons database of over 250 jet card programs. Looking at Q2, the average hourly rate for a jet card with fixed hourly or capped hourly rates that guarantees availability. These are U.S. North American programs, and the hourly rate was $10,770. That's a 6% increase from Q1, and that's 28% more than the end of 2020. So definitely private jet inflation. Let's talk about the different categories. All was not equal. Light jet rates were up 6%. So the average rate for a light jet, and these rates include fuel surcharges, they include FET, any other surcharges. A couple companies are adding additional surcharges. So these are all in hourly rates. And the cost for a light jet is now $8,050 per hour. That's the average. That's a 6% increase, so similar to what the market did. But light jets, compared to the end of 2020, the hourly rate is now up 44%. So significant increase in light jets. Looking at midsize jets in Q2 increased, the price increased by 8%. That put the hourly rate for a mid-size jet to $9,323 per hour, again, including all of the charges and taxes I mentioned. That's 34% higher than the end of 2020. Super mid-size jets, which are aircraft that have transcontinental range, typically seat 8 or 9 passengers. The super mid-size prices, they increased 4% in the quarter, up to $11,649 as an average, and that's a 27% increase from the end of 2020. Large cabin jets, they went up significantly in the quarter, 9% up in the quarter, up 28% since the end of 2020. So they're starting to catch up in terms of the price increases. The average large cabin jet, the price is now $15,449 per hour. What else is changing with private jet cards, the fixed rate jet cards? Well, the amount of peak days continues to increase. It's now up to 53.2 peak days for the programs. On peak days, obviously, longer advance notice to book, to cancel. Some have surcharges, some don't. Some of the surcharges can be as much as 100%, so they can be significant. The most significant thing about peak days is the providers can move your departure time by typically plus minus 3 hours, although some programs can move your departure time by up to 6 hours in either direction. So in some ways, that defeats one of the reasons you fly privately. I want to get a last round of golf in, etc., or we have to leave after the kids get out of school. So more peak days. Average number of peak days is now 53.2. That's up 8% in the quarter. Before the pandemic, at the end of 2019, the average number of peak days was 22.8, so a big increase in peak days. The other factor that's making private jet travel not only more expensive but more restrictive is increase in daily minimums, and that means that even if your flight is less than the minimum, that's what you get billed. The average daily minimum for light jets, which typically you would use for 6, 5, 7 people on a shorter flight, the average daily minimum in Q2 increased by 16% and now stands at 103 minutes, so basically an hour and 45 minutes. And that's a 33% increase from before the pandemic, the end of 2019. At that time, the average light jet minimum was 78 minutes. And so, if you're doing flights under 60 minutes, it's becoming more and more difficult to find programs with 60-minute or 72-minute minimums or even 90-minute minimums. The same thing if you look at super mid-sized jets. They're now 110 minutes. That's 15% up since the end of 2019, so essentially 2 hours. So if you're looking for a super mid-sized jet because you needed 8 seats, and a lot of mid-sized programs cap out at 7, all of a sudden, you're faced with a 2-hour minimum. So if you're doing shorter flights, that's going to hit you, especially when you think about an $11,000 an hour rate. And then for large cabin jets, the minimum is now up to, the average daily minimum is now at 130 minutes, so over 2 hours. That's up 29% compared to before COVID. So if you need a jet that seats 10 people, 12 people, and you're taking a shorter flight, a 90-minute flight, a 60-minute flight, it's going to be much, much more difficult, slim pickings when it comes to finding programs with minimums below 2 hours on large cabin aircraft. So that we've gotten rid of all of the negatives. Now I'm going to talk to you about some of the potentially positive trends and also how things compare to the dynamic pricing. So, some programs, they'll price your trips flight by flight dynamically based on market rates. And, that's the same as if you call a broker for each trip. So I'm going to talk to you about that. That's going to make you feel better about the fixed rate jet cards. So how does this all compare to dynamic pricing, to calling a broker? We take a look each quarter at 12 different scenarios. We get hard quotes from on-demand brokers, and then we compare them to the jet card pricing averages. For these 12 route scenarios, in Q2, the average price, the lowest quotes from the brokers we went to, the average for the 12 different scenarios was $24,367. So $24,367. The average jet card price was $27,551. So if you're a shopper, it does mean that, depending on the routes, and I'll put a link to the article, you can probably do better if you're flexible, just doing on-demand dynamic pricing. But if you think about it, the high quote from the on-demand brokers, the average was $48,375. So low average was $24,367 from the on-demand brokers. High quote average was $48,375. Jet card average was $27,551. And so, obviously that means there's some jet cards that are less expensive, some that are more expensive. Obviously the terms vary also, but if you value your time and, you don't want to spend a day calling brokers or going online and getting quotes back and forth and then running to confirm, and obviously the cancellation terms always vary, jet cards are still very competitive in terms of, just being able to email or text or call up to your company and say, I want to leave Friday at 4 p.m. Book me because I've got my contracted rate. I will say that from Q1 to Q2, the average price, the low average for the on-demand brokers where we got the hard quotes, actually went down by about $500 from $24,894 to $24,367. And so to me, that's a sign that maybe we've sort of seen a cap, or we're going to see a little bit of a slowdown in these continued increased prices or repricing of the jet card programs, because clearly there are a few more deals out there when you're shopping on demand. The prices didn't go up, they went down a little bit. On the flip side, the high average quotes did go up. So, that means that, there is good pricing out there. You have to be a shopper, you have to be flexible, and it's, probably on busier routes. So if you're not living, if you're not going between two airports where there's a lot of private jet activity, like Teterboro to Palm Beach, if you're going from Tulsa to Little Rock, two different situations. So I think one of the things we can look at or say is maybe jet card hourly rate pricing, the increases may slow down a little bit, and we'll have to see. We'll take a look again in 90 days. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe. Also, please visit privatejetcardcomparisons.com, sign up for our free e-newsletter, and learn more about how we can help you find the right private aviation solution for your unique flying needs, including long flight.